Hello summoners and welcome to the Mobalytics patch 8.11 video tier list. This is a huge patch with a ton of sweeping changes, so I don't want to waste any more of your time and I want to get into it. Really quickly, I would like to go over Pyke before we start, and then we'll get right into the tier list. So for Pyke, let's talk about him really quickly. If you didn't know, for Mobalytics we don't actually put brand new champions or brand new reworks on the very first tier list that they come out. So just because Pyke came out on this patch means that's why you won't see him on the list. However, I'd like to make a very quick honorable mention for him because I suspect that the champion will be very good for solo queue. His numbers seem quite a bit inflated, and the amount of damage that he can put out simply by building 1 or 2 lethality items seems quite ridiculous in a lot of different situations. But only time will tell. After a brand new champion has been released, not only does it take a long time for people to figure out how to play and pilot the hero, but it also takes a long time for people to figure out how to play against it. So this could be a potential reason as to why I see Pyke being very successful. Anyway, let's get on to the tier list. Starting off in top lane, what you'll notice is that carries are really making their way back up the tier list. Currently in solo queue, it's just too hard to make tanks work and recommend people to play tanks. They kind of just get destroyed in the laning phase in some way, shape, or form, and they can't really deal with Conqueror damage. The other thing is that Last Whisper was buffed for AD bruiser type champions and spellcasters rather than for AD carries. Now being total armor penetration, it's the same way the old Last Whisper used to be. So if you remember champions like Jace or Riven doing very well with those, that's probably why you see them a little bit higher on the tier list. As for Singed, well, it's the elephant in the room. I just said that tanks aren't that good, yet guys like Singed and Dr. Mundo are this high on the tier list. Well, that's because they're somewhat of the exception to the rule. Singed and Dr. Mundo do insane damage, and especially for Singed, he is incredibly powerful for solo queue at the moment. Definitely an overpowered champion, does a lot of damage, very tanky, very speedy, really hard to kill and catch. Singed will do anything that you need out of a top laner and more currently, which is why he's been S tier for so long. There's also a pretty good chance that something like an Essence Reaver build on things like Jace, Jax, or Fiora might take over the top lane. We're really not sure just yet where Essence Reaver will end up in a lot of these item builds. Will it be built first, second, or third? It's too hard to call currently, but the inclination might be that the cooldown reduction when using your basic abilities on duelists might be very good for top laners. Onto the jungle role, where we still see the same champions that you should permaban every game, like Graves and Xin Zhao in S tier, but then we've seen a few pieces of rising stock elsewhere, such as Pantheon. Pantheon in the jungle has been somewhat popularized by jungle streamers, and it seems pretty good. Specifically talking about jungle matchups, Pantheon can do well into both Graves and Xin Zhao, and as far as the champion's overall effectiveness in the jungle, he's very good at what he does. League in general is a very early game focused, snowball focused game right now, and Pantheon jungle has fantastic ganks both pre and at level 6. Master Yi is another champion that's been working his way up the tier list ladder, and this patch is no exception, especially with the items that he can now build into. Things like the new Essence Reaver, Storm Razor, and the new Hail of Blades Keystone all seem like they could possibly work on Master Yi, and he already was doing very well with the Rageblade build. He does kinda ruin team comps, but he can also carry very hard, so a tier list for climbing should definitely include him. For mid lane, it's pretty apparent that this patch has the least amount of mix-up, but there are a few changes in and out of S tier. Zoe has cemented herself as one of, if not the best mid laners on this current patch, and she's very scary for solo queue. Zoe players have just smartened up and got a lot better at the champion, and now they've realized just how effective the combo of Ignite, Electrocute or Summon Aerie, and Lichbane is. The crazy thing about Zoe is that if you've been watching her play pattern recently, a lot of the time she doesn't even need to hit the bubble to one-shot you. The Q, ulti, and auto attack alone with Lichbane will do the job. Do not let her cuteness and pink hair fool you, this champion is a monster. As far as the rest of the mid lane pool, things that were quite good last patch, such as Aurelion Sol, Talon, and Fizz, are still up there in S tier, and things like Aurelia, LeBlanc, Katarina, and Zed, cementing themselves as some of the best mid lane hard carries, are still there as well. The reason Twisted Fate dropped out of S tier is simply just because Minion Dematerializer was nerfed a little bit, and because he doesn't necessarily do too well in some of the S tier matchups, that's the only reason why he drops down just a bit. ADCs were nerfed quite hard on this patch. All of their early game base stats and early game fleet footwork, as well as crit itemization, was nerfed, which means what do we do with the bot lane tier list? The way you can think about ADCs on this patch is one of two ways. You might want to be able to pick something that can completely dominate lanes, such as Draven or Misfortune, or you can pick an ADC that spikes really hard on one item still, specifically Rageblade AD carries like Kog'Maw, Kai'Sa, and Varus. Lucian is in one of the better spots that he's been in a long time for the AD carry tier list. This is because he's still the same great lane bully that he's always been, as well as Bork receiving a very nice cost reduction for him, and the new Essence Reaver being quite good for him. Both Press the Attack and or Hail of Blades will be very good for him, which means that those 1 and 2 item power spikes like we talked about means that Lucian is going to be pumping out the damage with Essence Reaver and Bork. Kai'Sa is still very strong, and I would argue she's probably the best AD carry on this patch. The problem with Kai'Sa is that she synergizes too well and spikes too hard on her one item, but she also scales into her late game hyper carry status. The thing about Kai'Sa is that it doesn't matter what your support plays. If they play an Ardent or Enchanter support, it means that she just does way more DPS. But if your support plays an all-in like Alistar, you can also use your ulti to get to the back line because the Alistar's CC means that it applies your passive and allows you to press your R. Kai'Sa can go for an all-in style with Press the Attack, where she can sit back with things like Lethal Tempo or even Fleet Footwork still and be very effective. It just means that Kai'Sa is a really strong AD carry. Onto our supportive friends in the bot lane, there's not much else that got changed on this patch for them other than the fact that supports in general might be a little bit more focused around early game, so hard engaged supports might be slightly better like Blitzcrank or Alistar. Soraka has also made her way into S tier, and that's simply because she's just too good now. She's one of the most sleeper OP enchanters for sure, and once people start realizing the E-Max battle Soraka is incredibly strong with both a very good laning phase and scaling quite well, it means that Soraka is just pretty much OP just like the rest of the other enchanters. Anyway, this has been the Mobalytics patch 8.11 video tier list. This was a very big patch and there were a lot of changes, so make sure you let us know in the comment section down below what you think and what are some of the champions you've been seeing doing very well on this patch. Follow us on all our socials, and thank you very much for watching.